My name is Michael King. I'm 55, a cardiothoracic surgeon, and according to my daughter that day, I didn't exist. I was standing at the front door of the house I bought her. The one I dropped $3.2 million on, so she could have the life I never did. And there she was, wearing a torn, stained apron, scrubbing her own entryway floor, hair pulled back, like a maid in an old movie, eyes empty in a way I'd never seen. And when I said, "Sarah, it's me, it's Dad," she looked right through me and replied, "Dad, I don't have a father. You need to leave before my husband gets home." My stomach dropped. Not that little roller coaster dip you shake off. I mean dropped. When someone steals your car, you call the cops. When someone steals your money, you call your lawyer. But what do you do when someone steals your daughter's mind? You rewind. You go back to the start. You figure out where the rot began. So, let me back up. The girl I raised alone, Sarah, was never supposed to grow up like this. I grew up working class trailer park outside Houston, leaky roof, nights where dinner was cereal and tap water. I decided early I'd do whatever it took so my kid would never feel that kind of fear. I clawed my way into med school. No family connections, no legacy money. Just student loans and energy drinks. By the time Sarah was born, I was a young attending surgeon. Nice house, 2 cars, a wife, the picture people post on Facebook when they want to show off. Her mom didn't last. Emily liked the Dr. S. wife lifestyle more than the actual work that came with it. Late nights, on calls. Missed anniversaries because I was cracking open someone's chest instead of cutting cake. When Sarah was 8, her mom moved out. She needed to find herself. Apparently, she found herself in Tulum with a yoga instructor half my age. So after that, it was just me and Sarah. I learned how to pack lunches at 5 a.m., how to braid hair badly, how to fake confidence at parent-teacher meetings when I was running on 0 sleep. She used to sit on the couch waiting up for me with a blanket and a stack of Disney DVDs. "I can't sleep till you're home," she'd say. "What if your heart gets tired at work and you need me?" She'd draw little hearts on Post-it notes and stick them inside my briefcase. Back then, she was my whole universe, and I was dumb enough to think I was hers. How you accidentally create a target. Here's the dark side of giving your kid everything you never had. You also unintentionally teach them that the world will rearrange itself around them. Sarah never saw the nights I slept in my car during residency, the ramen dinners, the landlords who almost kicked me out. She just saw the part where college was prepaid, her first car was used but still nicer than anything I drove in my 20s. Her vacations had plane tickets, not car seats on Greyhound. And I'm not blaming her. She's not the villain here. But that life, it made her a perfect target for someone who knows how to weaponize comfort. Because predators don't just look for weak people. They look for people who are used to being taken care of. Enter Brandon. She met him at a friend's engagement party. I remember our first phone call where she mentioned him. "His name's Brandon," she said. "He's a real estate attorney. Super smart. Very put together." Those 3 words should have been screaming like sirens. Real estate attorney. Not that there's anything automatically evil about lawyers, but when someone's whole job is contracts, leverage, and fine print, You better read the fine print on them, too. At first, he sounded fine. He sent her flowers to work. He'd post those cringy couple photos with captions like "Found my queen." He joked about being intimidated by me, the surgeon, but honored to be welcomed into the family. He called me "sir" a lot, too much. I just want to make sure Sarah's always taken care of, sir, he told me once at dinner. I should have paid attention to how he said it, like she was an asset, a portfolio, something to be managed. But I didn't see it then. I saw my daughter smiling again after a rough breakup, a guy with a solid job, someone who pulled chairs out and opened doors and said please and thank you. Classic starter pack for a good son-in-law. The house that built the trap about a year into dating. She called me one evening. "Dad," she said, "can I ask you something big?" "Sure," I said, rinsing out a coffee mug at the hospital lounge. "What's up?" She sent me a link. Zillow listing. Gorgeous modern house. Glass everywhere. Pool in the back. View of the hills. "Wow," I said. "Nice place. Who's the lucky billionaire?" "Silence, Dad. We want to buy it," she said. "Me and Brandon. Well, mostly Brandon. But the bank wants a bigger down payment, and the interest rate is insane. And..." She trailed off. I knew where this was going. "How much?" I asked. She hesitated. "They're asking 3.8. We can get it down. But the down payment, we're short." "How short?" "Like 3.2 million short." She half laughed, half winced. I actually laughed out loud. "Sarah, most people call being short 3.2 million not in the same galaxy." I know," she said quickly. "I don't expect you to just give it. But you always said when Mom left that you were working so hard, so I'd never have to worry about a roof over my head." That line hit like a sucker punch. Because yeah, I did say that. "You'd get it back," she added quickly. "We'd pay you monthly." Brandon already ran the numbers. And I want a home that feels like ours, not a rental. She sent me a photo of her standing in the kitchen of that place. Big windows. That look in her eyes she used to get when she saw a Christmas tree. I stared at that image way too long. The responsible answer would have been, "No, that's insane. Get something smaller. Build up. Learn how to struggle a bit." Instead, what came out was, "Let me talk to my financial advisor." Selling my future for her dream I'd saved aggressively since residency. No crazy toys, no boat, no second vacation home. My guy at the investment firm used to joke, "You're the richest person I know who still eats hospital cafeteria food by choice." We sat in his office, going over the numbers. "Mike," he said, "if you do this, you're basically trading in a comfortable retirement for a daughter's dream house. You could technically recover, but you're rolling back the clock 10, 15 years. Can I survive?" I asked. He sighed. "Yeah, you'll survive. No private island, no golf resort membership. But you'll be okay if you keep working." "Then do it," I said. "Are you sure?" He pressed. "You, Dan T, have to prove you're a good dad with a bank transfer." "I'm not trying to prove anything," I lied. "I'm just keeping a promise." So we moved things, liquidated accounts, shifted investments. Within 3 weeks, $3.2 million left my world and landed squarely in escrow. I wired the money, signed a few things, thought I'd bought my daughter stability. What I didn't realize, I'd just bought Brandon leverage. The first small changes after they moved in, Sarah's texts turned into pictures. Look at the view from our bedroom. Check out the backyard we're getting a dog. Brendan surprised me with a wine fridge. I was genuinely happy for her. Tired, overworked, a little freaked out by my new bank balance, but happy. Brendan called me one night. "Dr. King, it's Mike," I corrected. "Mike," he said, "I just wanted to say, I know what you did for us. I won't forget it. It's life-changing. Take care of my kid," I said. "I will," he replied. "You have my word." Funny thing about words. They're worthless without a spine behind them. Over the next few months, I started noticing little shifts. Sarah stopped visiting me at the old house as much. "Traffic is brutal from our side of town, Dad. Brandon had a long day. I want to be here when he gets home. We're hosting people this weekend, maybe next week." Then little digs started showing up. "You know, Brandon thinks it's kinda weird that you're still working so much at your age," she said once. "He says you should be enjoying retirement." "I like what I do," I said. "I know, but he's very big on quality of life, you know." Translation: he thinks I'm a work-obsessed dinosaur. The call that should have been my red flag about 8 months after they moved in. She called me sounding off. Not sad, not angry, just tired. "Hey," I said. "You okay?" "Yeah," she replied. "Just a lot on my plate. The house, work, Brandon's schedule, everything good with him." I asked casually. "He's just particular," she said. "He likes things done a certain way. Wants the house perfect when he gets home. That kind of thing. Does he help?" Awkward pause. "He's busy," she said. "He works really hard." "So do you," I pointed out. "I know, Dad. Can we not do this?" She snapped, a little edge in her voice I'd never heard toward me before. "Do what? Turn everything into a problem? Brandon's good to me. I didn't say he wasn't." "You're implying it then." Quieter. "Look, I gotta go. He doesn't like when I'm on the phone too long." I should have latched on to that sentence. He doesn't like when I'm on the phone too long. That's abuser language, control freak language. I hear versions of it from patients with bruises under their sleeves. But when it's your own kid, you convince yourself you misheard. "All right," I said. "Call me when you can. Love you." "Yeah, love you too," she replied. But it came out automatic, like muscle memory. Not feeling the vanishing act after Christmas, she pretty much disappeared. Texts turned into one-word replies. Calls went to voicemail. When she did answer, I'd hear Brandon in the background. "Babe, dinner's getting cold. Did you email that thing I asked about? Why are you still on the phone? Always calm, always under control, never yelling, just monitoring." I mentioned it to a colleague at the hospital. "Sounds like she's wrapped up in the perfect couple illusion." He said, "Give it time. She'll call when she needs you." I told myself he was right. She didn't need me as the hero anymore. She had a husband, a house, a life. I kept working, kept sending holiday gifts. birthday cards, messages. Half of them went unanswered. The message that finally broke me. Then one afternoon, between surgeries, I got a text. Not from Sarah, from an unknown number. Dr. King, you don't know me. I'm Hannah. I clean your daughter's houses on Thursdays. I think you should come check on her. Something's not right. Houses, plural. I stared at that word for a full minute. I called the number. Hello, a woman answered. This is Michael King, I said. What do you mean, houses? I clean the main property, she said, and the rental on the other side of town. I shouldn't be saying any of this. Your daughter told me not to bother you, but she looked bad today. Bad how? Like she hasn't slept in days. She had bruises on her arm. She was scrubbing the kitchen floor while I was already mopping it. Her husband kept calling her lazy and useless right in front of me. My grip tightened on the phone. Did he touch her? I asked, voice lower. Not while I was there, she said. But the way she flinched. I've seen that before in other houses. Other women. When are you there again? I asked. Next Thursday, 10 a.m., she said. Please don't say I called you. He's got cameras everywhere. She could get in trouble. Thank you, I said quietly. You did the right thing. I hung up, stood there in an empty scrub room, staring at my own reflection in the stainless steel cabinets. I'd spent my whole life fixing broken hearts, and mine had been breaking right under my nose. The drive the next Thursday, I took the day off. Told the hospital I wasn't feeling well. Wasn't a total lie. I drove across town in silence. No music, no podcast, just white noise in my head. When I pulled up to Sarah Street, that house looked different. Still beautiful, still expensive, but cold, black SUV in the driveway. Security cameras at every corner. I watched the cleaner, Hannah, come out, put supplies in her trunk, and drive away. I waited 10 more minutes. Then I walked up to the front door and rang the bell. Footsteps, the shuffle of slippers, the click of locks. When the door opened, I barely recognized her. Hair tied back in a messy knot, dark circles under her eyes, apron splattered with something that looked like bleach. Sarah, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It's me. She froze for half a second. Then her face went blank, like a curtain dropping. Can I help you? She asked. It's Dad, I said. What's going on? Are you okay? Her jaw tightened. Dad, I don't have a father, she said flatly. You need to leave. If Brandon sees you here, it'll cause problems. Something inside my chest snapped. Sarah, what are you talking about? I bought this house for you. I raised you. She stepped outside, pulling the door almost shut behind her, like she didn't want me to see inside. Please go, she whispered. You're not supposed to be here. Brandon says you're dangerous, that you're trying to control me through money. You abandoned us. We're doing fine without you. Abandoned. I stared at her. I never abandoned you, I said. Your mom left. I stayed. I worked myself half to death so you could live like this. She shook her head like trying to dislodge a thought. I don't remember it that way, she said. All I remember is you being gone, always at work, always tired, never there for me. That wasn't memory. That was rewiring. Somewhere between the flowers and the mortgage and the quality of life speeches, Brandon had installed himself as the hero and painted me as the villain. Sarah, listen to me, I said, lowering my voice. Has he hurt you? Has he ever laid a hand on you? I swear to God, if her eyes darted to the security camera above the door, I said, leave, she hissed, louder this time. Don't come back. And then she said the line that will haunt me until the day I die. We don't need you. I don't have a father. She stepped back inside and shut the door before I could answer. I stood there with my hand on empty air, reaching for a kid who wasn't there anymore. Only thing left on that doorstep was me, and the feeling that my daughter had been kidnapped with her eyes wide open. That was the moment I stopped being a surgeon trying to give her space and became a father on a mission. You can tell a man you took his money. You can even tell him you don't need him. But when you try to erase the years he spent holding your tiny hand through nightmares, that's when you find out what he's really capable of. And that's where things really started to twist. When someone you love tells you to leave, you hear that sentence on repeat. Every night, every time you try to sleep. That line, Dad, I don't have a father, kept looping in my mind like a broken record. The silence after, for the first 2 weeks, I didn't move. I went to work, did surgeries, nodded through small talk, but inside, dead quiet. Every sound in the hospital, the monitor beeps, the hum of fluorescent lights, just reminded me of that silence behind her door. I tried calling again, blocked. I tried emailing, bounced, even sent a letter through certified mail, came back unopened, with return to sender scrawled across the front in handwriting that wasn't hers. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just gone. She'd been erased. Hiring help one night, around 2 a.m., I called an old patient of mine, a private investigator named Frank Delaney. He owed me. I'd saved his life on an operating table 5 years earlier. Doc, he said, half asleep, you sure you want to do this? Family stuff gets messy. Messy's fine, I said. I just need the truth, he sighed. Text me the address. Give me a few days. The report 3 days later, Frank showed up at my office. He dropped a manila folder on my desk. Your son-in-law's been busy, he said. Inside were photos. Brandon meeting with a real estate broker. Brandon signing papers with my daughter nowhere in sight. Brandon entering a law office, the same one that handled my daughter's trust account. I flipped through faster. What's this? I asked, holding up a page. Transfer paperwork, Frank said. 2 houses, both in your daughter's name. Moved into a joint LLC. Brandon's listed as managing partner. My blood ran cold. You're saying he owns half? No, Frank said. I'm saying he owns everything. She signed power of attorney last fall. He made sure of it. I leaned back, heart pounding. He'd played the long game. Affection, dependence, isolation, control. Classic predator pattern. But this time, he picked the wrong damn family. The plan, Frank, I said quietly. I'm gonna need more than pictures. He grinned. You're thinking lawsuit. Not yet. Something quieter. He's smart. I need to be smarter. Frank nodded. You still got that hospital connection downtown. Yeah. Why? Because that firm he works for, they're swimming in medical real estate investments, retirement homes, clinics, outpatient centers. Find where your money intersects with theirs. Follow the dollars. That night, I went through my records, donation portfolios, foundation accounts, real estate tax statements, and sure enough, one line item stood out. King Wellness Properties LLC, minority stakeholder, Haverford, and Crane Law Group, Brandon's firm. I'd been indirectly funding the company that paid him bonuses. You ever get that kind of betrayal, gut punch, where you just sit in the dark, trying to laugh, but end up choking instead? That was me, staring at my own checkbook like it stabbed me. The visit the next morning, I didn't call, didn't text. I drove straight to their house. Brandon answered. Perfect hair, polo shirt, smile that didn't reach his eyes. Dr. King, he said, all calm charm. What a surprise. Is Sarah home? I asked. She's resting, he said. You know how anxious she gets when you drop by unannounced. I'd like to see her, I said, stepping forward. He blocked the door, just slightly. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to say, I own this space. Mike, he said. First time he ever used my first name. Maybe at S-time, you moved on. She's building a new life. Let her breathe. You mean let you control her, I said. His smile froze for a fraction of a second. I think you should go, he said. So I did, for now. But before I left, I noticed something. A small, nervous hand tugging the curtain upstairs. Sarah, watching the hidden message 3 nights later. I found a plain envelope slid under my door at home. No return address, no markings. Inside, a single note. He watches everything. Don't come here again, but I need help. S. That one letter S broke me and rebuilt me at the same time. She wasn't gone. She was trapped. Operation Wake Up if Brandon wanted to play contracts and control. Fine, but I was still a doctor, and I knew how to perform extractions. I started small. I contacted one of my financial partners, a developer named Alicia Tran, who had connections in real estate law. Alicia, I said, how long does it take to dissolve an LLC if both parties aren't in agreement? Depends, she said. Why? Hypothetically, if one party signed under emotional duress, her eyebrows went up. That's serious. You can't prove that easily. I can, if I record him, I said, setting the trap. Frank helped me set up a phone intercept app, totally legal in my state, if one party consents to the recording. I waited a week, then called Brandon, pretending to make peace. Listen, I said, I overstepped. I miss Sarah. I just want to make things right. He chuckled. Mike, I'm glad you're seeing reason. You gotta understand, she's fragile. I've been keeping her grounded. Grounded, I repeated. Yeah, he said. When she gets emotional, she signs things she shouldn't. I help keep her steady. Click. Saved. 2 days later, I sent that audio file straight to Alicia. She called an hour later. Michael, this is gold. That's a confession of manipulation. We can reopen the contracts. But I wasn't done yet. Cracking the control next step was getting Sarah physically away from him. Frank tracked Brandon's schedule. Gym every morning at 6, coffee meeting at 8, back home by 9:30. So I waited outside the cafe he went to. When he stepped out, I walked up behind him and said quietly, "You know what the worst thing about sociopaths is?" He turned, startled. "They think everyone else plays checkers while they're playing chess," I said. "But you forgot I built the board." He tried to brush past me. "You don't scare me, old man." "I don't have to," I said, handing him an envelope. "You'll scare yourself when you read this." Inside was a legal notice: motion to freeze the LLC, revoke power of attorney, and subpoena his firm for coercion records. His face went white. "You can't." "I can," I said, "and I already did." Then I walked away. The escape that night, I got another envelope under my door. This one wasn't typed. It was scribbled in my daughter's shaky handwriting. "He's furious. Leaving tomorrow." "I'm scared." I called Frank. "Get her out tonight," I said. 2 hours later, Sarah was sitting in my kitchen, wrapped in one of my old hospital hoodies, shaking. "Dad," she whispered, "I'm so sorry." I didn't say a word. I just handed her a cup of tea and let her cry. The aftermath. Brandon didn't go down quietly. He filed countersuits, called me abusive, even tried to convince Sarah to come back through letters. But the recordings, the witness statements, the financial proof, it was all there. The judge granted full dissolution, seized the accounts, and ordered him to vacate both properties. When the decision came through, Sarah sat in the back of the courtroom, clutching my hand like she used to when she was little. "You didn't have to save me," she whispered. "I didn't," I said. "You saved yourself. I just reminded you who you were." Months later, she's in therapy now, working again, slowly rebuilding. Sometimes she'll come over and help me cook dinner, like she used to when she was 10. And every time she does, she whispers the same thing before leaving: "Thank you for not giving up." I tell her that's what fathers do, because even when your child says you don't exist, your love does. There's a strange silence that follows victory. People expect fireworks, champagne, closure, but sometimes it's just quiet. And in that quiet, you start hearing everything you missed while fighting for survival. That's where I was, sitting on my back porch 2 months after the court ruling, listening to the sound of sprinklers and distant traffic, trying to remember what normal felt like. Sarah was safe. Brandon was out of her life, at least legally. And for the first time in a year, my house didn't feel empty. But I should have known better. Guys like Brandon don't lose gracefully. They regroup. The smear campaign, it started subtle. A few anonymous posts on social media. Powerful doctor ruins daughter's marriage out of jealousy. Surgeon manipulates daughter's finances. After losing control, then came the reporters. Tabloids loved it. Wealthy father versus groom from hell. They called me a narcissist, a control freak, a man who couldn't let go of his little girl. And the thing is, Brandon knew exactly how to play it. He'd studied me. He knew I hated public attention. He couldn't win in court, so he went after my reputation. Within a week, I was trending on local news. Within 2, the hospital board called me in for a discussion. The board meeting, Michael, the hospital director said gently, "You know we support you. But this publicity, it's becoming a distraction. A distraction. I snapped. My daughter was emotionally abused and robbed blind. I exposed him. I understand, she said, palms open. But patients are nervous. You're in the news every day. So what do you want me to do? Apologize for being a father. She hesitated. Take a leave of absence. Just until things quiet down. A leave of absence. After 27 years of cutting hearts open and sewing them back together, I looked around that boardroom. People I'd trained, taught, saved. Not one of them met my eyes. Losing what's left. 2 days later, my hospital ID stopped working. No access to the OR. No patients. No purpose. For the first time in decades, I woke up with nowhere to be. You'd think that'd feel like rest. It didn't. It felt like someone turned the volume down on my life. Sarah tried to make it better. She'd come over with takeout, sit on the couch, try to fill the silence with normal things. Dad, let's watch something funny. She'd say, you need a break. But I could see it in her eyes. The guilt. Every time she looked at me, it was like she was apologizing without words. Brandon's counterattack. A week later, he went live on a podcast. One of those men writes shows filled with loud voices and cheap microphones. I listened, not because I wanted to, but because Frank sent me the link. Her father was obsessed with control, Brandon said smoothly. He manipulated her finances, gaslit her. He even recorded me without consent. It's abuse, just from an older generation. The host nodded like an idiot. So you're saying you were the victim? Exactly, Brandon said. He couldn't stand seeing her independent. Independent. The word hit me like a punch. The man who turned my daughter into a puppet was now calling her independence, his creation. The collapse, the stress finally caught up. One evening, I was making tea when the room tilted. Next thing I knew, my face was against cold tile, mug shattered beside me. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed, hooked to a monitor, oxygen cannula in my nose. Sarah was there, head on the edge of the bed, asleep. Her eyes were swollen from crying. When she awoke, she grabbed my hand. Dad, you scared the hell out of me. I tried to speak, but my throat burned. The doctor said you had a small cardiac event. She said softly. They think it's stress-related. I chuckled weakly. Irony's a bitch, huh? Heart surgeon almost dies of heartbreak. She squeezed my hand harder. I'm not leaving this time, she said. Not again. A quiet recovery, 3 weeks of recovery, taught me patience I didn't know I had. Physical therapy, walking laps around the ward, listening instead of talking. Sarah came every day. Sometimes we didn't even speak. She'd just sit and read while I stared at the window, pretending to watch clouds. One morning, she brought a folder. Dad, she said nervously, I've been working on something. Inside were papers, donation receipts, blueprints, permits. What is this? I asked. A community wellness center, she said, for women rebuilding after abuse, therapy, legal aid, job placement. I named it the King Foundation. I looked at her, stunned. You did this? She nodded. I used some of the funds from the settlement, and I wanted to do something good with your name. something that actually heals. I didn't cry. I couldn't. My chest hurt too much already. But inside, something that had been broken started to mend. The final confrontation. A month later, Brandon tried one last stunt. He filed an injunction claiming I coerced Sarah into donating to the foundation. Said it was another manipulation tactic. The judge set a hearing date. This time, Sarah wanted to testify. When she took the stand, she didn't look scared. She looked fierce. My father didn't coerce me, she said firmly. He saved me. And the only reason this foundation exists is because he taught me how to fight for myself. Brandon's lawyer tried to rattle her. Miss King, didn't your father control your finances for years? She smiled, small but sharp. He protected me until I was strong enough to do it myself. You call that control. I call it love. Even the courtroom went silent. The judge didn't take long. Motion denied. Case dismissed. Brandon stormed out without looking back. And for the first time, the victory didn't feel heavy. It felt peaceful. Months later, life found rhythm again. I went back to the hospital part-time, teaching surgical residents instead of working 20-hour shifts. Sarah ran the foundation full-time, turning her pain into purpose. One evening, we sat watching the sunset from my porch, the same spot where I'd once felt completely alone. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Do you ever wish things had gone differently? She asked. I thought about it, about the betrayal, the loss, the sleepless nights, the headlines, the heart attack. Then I said, no, because if it had, you might never have found your strength, and I'd never have learned how to let go without losing you. She smiled softly. You're still my hero, you know. I laughed. Nah, heroes wear capes. I just wear hospital scrubs and make bad coffee. She chuckled, the kind of laugh that sounds like healing. The real ending a few weeks later. Sarah asked me to come to the opening of the foundation's first branch. When I got there, I saw a plaque by the entrance. It read, For every father who never stopped believing, even when the world told him to walk away. Dedicated to Dr. Michael King. That broke me in the best way. I didn't plan a speech. Didn't have to. Sometimes silence says enough. I just smiled at her, tears threatening, and whispered, You gave me back my heart. She grinned. Guess it runs in the family, huh? When people ask what forgiveness looks like, I tell them this. It's not forgetting the pain. It's watching someone you love rebuild from it and realizing you'd go through it all again if it meant they could stand this tall. To everyone watching, would you have fought this hard for your child or walked away? Drop your thoughts below. And remember, sometimes love doesn't sound like I forgive you. Sometimes it sounds like I'm still here. 10 years passed. 10 long years since the day my daughter stood in that courtroom and took her life back. And if you told me back then that I'd one day wake up to birds instead of panic, I would have laughed in your face. But peace has a way of sneaking up on you. Slow, quiet, like sunrise through hospital blinds. Sarah's foundation grew faster than either of us expected. From 1 center to 12 across the country. Partnerships, interviews, grants. She became this unstoppable force of empathy. Every time I watched her speak at a conference, I saw the little girl who once waited up for me to come home. Except now, she wasn't waiting, she was leading. She had this signature phrase she always ended her talks with. You can't rewrite your past, but you can rewire your future. Every time she said it, I felt that mix of pride and ache. Pride because she finally believed it. Ache because I knew how much it had cost her to get there. One quiet Tuesday morning, I was making coffee when a courier knocked on my door. Envelope, no return address, stamped and sealed by hand. Inside, one single sheet of paper. The handwriting stopped me cold. I hadn't seen it in a decade. Brandon Hale. My hands shook, but I read. Dr. King, I don't expect forgiveness. You were right about everything. I've spent years trying to hate you, but the truth is, I envy you. You loved her without needing to own her. I lost everything. The house, the firm, the money, all gone. I'm not writing to ask for anything. I just need you to tell her I'm sorry. Not because I got caught, because I finally understand what I destroyed. Brandon. The air in my kitchen felt heavier. Not angry heavy, grief heavy. Because as much as I wanted to hate the man forever, part of me pitied him. He debuilt his life on control and ended up losing the only person who ever cared about him, and me. I'd built mine on saving hearts and learned the hardest one to fix was my own. For 3 days, I didn't tell Sarah about the letter. I carried it in my coat pocket, reread it over and over, wondering if showing it would help her heal or reopen the wound. When I finally told her, she was silent for a long time. We were sitting on the porch again, the same spot where everything always seemed to come full circle. Do you believe him? She asked finally. I don't know, I said, but I believe he's broken. And that's a kind of truth, too. She nodded slowly. I used to dream about getting that apology, but now that it's here, I just feel tired. That's how you know you've really moved on, I said, when closure feels quiet instead of loud. A month later, she told me she wanted to visit him. Sarah, I warned, you don't owe him that. I know, she said softly, but I owe it to myself to know I can face him and not break. So we drove together. A halfway house outside Phoenix, faded paint, chain-link fence, desert stretching forever behind it. He came out slowly, thinner, older, humbled. The arrogance was gone. In its place was something almost fragile. Sarah, he said, voice trembling, you look alive. I am, she said, thanks to the man you tried to erase. He swallowed hard. I know, and I'll live with that forever. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just looked at him, really looked at him, and said, I forgive you. Not for you. For me. And then she turned and walked away. He didn't follow, didn't call out, just stood there, small against that wide Arizona sky. On the flight home, Sarah dozed off beside me, her head resting lightly against my shoulder. I stared out the window, watching the clouds, thinking about how full circle everything had come. When she was little, she used to ask me, Dad, what do you do when someone breaks your heart? And I used to say, you fix it. You're stronger than the break. Now, I realized you don't fix it. You grow around it, like scar tissue, tougher, thicker, still there, but not stopping you from living. The goodbye I never wanted. 2 years later, I retired for good. Heart still ticking, hands still steady, but I'd had enough of fluorescent lights and constant emergencies. I spent my days reading, gardening, visiting Sarah's centers. The quiet was finally peaceful. And then, one morning, she showed up with tears in her eyes and a box in her hands. "Dad," she said, "I need you to see this." Inside were letters, dozens of them, from women who'd been helped by her foundation. Stories of rebuilding, forgiveness, survival. One of them wrote, "Your sinner saved my life. I told my daughter I didn't have a mother, but now I'm learning how to be one again." Sarah smiled through her tears. "Sound familiar?" I laughed softly. "Yeah, guess the line runs in the family." The ending that wasn't years later. When people ask Sarah about her story, she doesn't talk about money or betrayal or lawsuits. She talks about love that refused to die. When I said, "Dad, I don't have a father," she tells audiences, "I was wrong. I had one. I just couldn't see him through the fog of someone else's lies. But he never stopped standing in the light, waiting for me to come home." Every time I hear her say that, I still tear up. Not from pain, from pride. Because that's what fatherhood really is. Not control. Not perfection. Just showing up again and again, even when you've been shut out. Now, I'm old. My hair's gray. My hands shake. But when I look at my daughter, I see everything I fought for, standing tall. And when she hugs me, before leaving, she always whispers the same thing. "You're my forever dad." That's all I ever wanted. I thought peace had finally come to us. 10 years of quiet mornings. 10 years of purpose. 10 years where my daughter didn't flinch when the doorbell rang. But peace doesn't mean the past forgets you. It just waits for the right knock. And mine came one gray Friday morning. Sarah burst through my door, pale, shaking, a file clutched to her chest. "Dad," she said, breathless, "they're reopening the investigation." "What investigation?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "The foundation," she whispered. "Someone sent the IRS a tip. They re-saying our early donors were part of Elliot Crane's network. The Lazarus files are resurfacing." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. That name, Lazarus, the ghost we buried years ago, the project that nearly destroyed us both. We went straight to the foundation office. The agent sitting across from us looked young, sharp, too calm for the storm he was about to drop. "Dr. King, Ms. King," he said, "we're not accusing you of wrongdoing, but these financial links go deep. Some of the shell companies tied to your early investors also funded Elliot Crane's offshore accounts." Sarah's voice trembled. "But that money built the first center. It saved people." "I know," the agent said. "But legally, we have to follow the trail." He slid a photo across the table, grainy, but clear enough to make my stomach twist. Brandon, standing in a parking lot, a timestamp from 2 months ago. He wasn't dead. The man who wouldn't die that night. I sat alone in my study. The photo on my desk. The rain against the windows. How many times can one man crawl out of his own grave? Frank called around midnight. "Mike, we got a hit on his alias. He's been living under the name Daniel Crane, Elliot's supposed cousin. He's using a new ID, new address, running quiet consulting gigs. And the tip to the IRS, I asked, came from an encrypted email. Guess who the IP traces back to? I didn't even answer. Brandon wasn't after money this time. He wanted to burn Sarah's name, the same way she'd destroyed his. The next morning, the media was all over it again. Charity Queen linked to criminal empire. Was the King Foundation built on dirty money? I watched my daughter's face as she read those headlines. Her eyes didn't fill with tears. They hardened. "I'm not running again," she said. "Not this time." We tracked him to a private villa 2 hours outside Phoenix. Frank warned me not to go alone, so of course I did. When he opened the door, he looked ordinary. No fancy suit, no arrogance. Just a man half the weight he used to be. Hair streaked gray, eyes hollow. "Michael," he said softly, "you shouldn't have come." "I didn't come for a conversation," I said. "You sent that tip. You tried to ruin her again." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "You still think this is about her? What else could it possibly be?" He looked up, tired but deliberate. "About him. Who?" "Elliot Crane," he said. "He's not dead." My pulse froze. That accident, it was staged. He disappeared, took the funds, and left me as bait. He's alive, Mike, and he's coming for what he lost. Brandon pulled out a flash drive. Everything I've got, emails, recordings, the offshore transfers, it's all here. He's using a new front company to funnel money through hospitals again, including yours. I stared at him. "Why give this to me?" He laughed weakly. "Because when the devil knocks twice, he comes for blood, not souls. And this time, he wants yours." I took the drive. Before I could speak, headlights flashed across the window. Black SUV, tinted glass. Brandon's face went pale. "They found me," he whispered. "Go." Gunshots shattered the silence. He dropped before I even hit the ground. I crawled out the back door, clutching the flash drive, my lungs on fire. By dawn, the police were everywhere. No bodies in the SUV. Brandon gone. Again, but the drive was safe. And what was on it changed everything. Emails linking Elliot Crane to major medical foundations. Names of donors, hospital executives, even former colleagues of mine. It wasn't just fraud anymore. It was power laundering, buying control of institutions with clean reputations. Sarah stared at the files, eyes wide. "Dad, this is bigger than us." "I know," I said. "But it's ending with us." The final decision, we handed everything to the FBI. The investigation went national. Arrests, resignations, lawsuits. Our names cleared again. But this time, it didn't feel like relief. It felt like closure. Weeks later, we stood at the site of the new foundation building. Sarah looked at me and said, "You realize this all started with one house, right?" I smiled. "Yeah, and one sentence I'll never forget." She nodded. "Dad, I don't have a father." Then she grinned. "Guess I was wrong twice." We laughed, the kind of laugh that sounds like healing, not victory. Now, years later, I look back and realize every battle, every loss, every scar was just proof that love doesn't need perfection. It just needs persistence. I wasn't the perfect father. She wasn't the perfect daughter. But we fought our way back to each other, and that's more than most people ever get. If you watched us far, you felt every hit, every heartbreak, every comeback. So let me ask you something. What would you do if someone tried to erase you from your own child's life? Would you fight back or walk away? Drop your answer in the comments below. Hit like if you believe real love never quits. Hit subscribe if you want more stories that remind us all that no matter how deep the betrayal runs, redemption can still rise. Because sometimes the loudest revenge is living long enough to forgive.